Alma Castro,
Here.
Andrea Hanley,
Here.
Adelma Hinasco,
Here.
Bernadette Ortiz Pena,
I'm here.
David Scheinbaum,
Here.
Exilda Trujillo de Martinez,
Here.
Jorge Bernal,
Here.
and Tamara Bates is excused for the moment. She'll be joining us at 4 p.m.
Great. I'm so glad you all are here. We worked hard to get these meetings, so I'm glad that pretty much everyone was able to attend. You all should have your agenda and minutes and everything that was sent to you by Armenia earlier. So if you all could look over that agenda and see what you all think, and then we'll move on from there.
Is it time for me to, I'd like to make a motion on the agenda. Is that okay?
Sure. What's your idea?
I'd like to make a motion to add a short director's report on chart and CARES initiatives to the agenda.
Yes, we'd love to hear from Pauline on both of those things, I think. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. All in favor of amending the agenda to add a brief director's report primarily focused on chart update and CARES initiatives? All in
Aye.
favor say aye. Or do you have to do roll call, Armenia?
Yes, please.
Okay, so she's going to ask you and you're going to say yes, hopefully.
Alex Hannah,
Yes.
Alma Castro, Andrea Hanley,
Yes.
Adelma Hinasco,
Yes.
Bernadette Ortiz Pena,
Yes.
David Scheinbaum,
Yes.
Exilda Trujillo de Martinez,
Yes.
Jorge Bernal,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Great. So and I assume we can do that right after the minutes are approved, if you agree, Pauline. Okay, great. And then if I'm hoping you all had a chance, I know that the meeting from October was a long one, but the minutes are pretty succinct, and hopefully you had a chance to look them over. We got lots of stuff done at that last one, and lots of things got pushed through. So that's why part of why we're here right now. Were there any adjustments or questions on the minutes from that October meeting?
I thought they were clear. I thought they were great. The only thing I would request changing is I'm listed as co-chair, and I think I should be vice chair, just so we have this consistently going forward. So I would request that the 2 or 3 times I'm called co-chair, it's shifted to vice chair. Thank you.
And I will begin roll call. Alex Hannah,
Yeah, approved.
Alma Castro, Andrea Hanley,
Approved.
Adelma Hinasco with your change.
Approved.
Thank you. Bernadette Ortiz Pena,
Approved.
David Scheinbaum,
Approved.
Exilda Trujillo de Martinez,
Approved.
Jorge Bernal,
Approved.
and that motion carries.
Great, thank you. So Pauline, give us a little update on some of the big stuff that's happening.
Great, thank you, Chair Hannah. Appreciate that, and commissioners. As you know, the chart, the Cultural History, Art, Reconciliation, Truth resolution has been going through City Council committees. It was supposed to go tonight with some amendments to the Public Works and Public Utilities Committee. However, it did not get on the agenda soon enough. So the amendments are still in process. It will go for review and to vote on Wednesday before the governing body of City Council. Some of the amendments that are being proposed is to start the engagement first. That way to gather input from the community and being a very community-centered approach. And then later having that inform an advisory group or even and eventually the governing body. So we're not sure at this moment what the final resolution will look like and how that will be formulated. I will be watching on Wednesday and taking notes, and I will give an update in a written director's report later in the month on that. So if you do have time on Wednesday evening, we're midway through the agenda for chart, but if not, definitely I will keep you all posted on what the final vote is and what it looks like. And again, it will be public document. So once that's finalized too, I will make sure shortly after the meeting that I share that with you. There will be a role for Arts and Culture Department. I'm not exactly sure, but our department, as well as the Department of Constituent Services with Christine Mihelsick, we will be the ones to help usher that in and provide framework for that. We still continue to work with the city to identify funds. There is some funds that I can identify out of our budget, and I believe I can make the argument for youth with arts education, as well as even with tourism, because again, we are lodgers tax funded. And as we know, culture and heritage and art is a huge part of why visitors come to Santa Fe. So this issue around the monuments and the three actually that are in the resolution play very heavily into the culture of Santa Fe. So I believe we can use funds for that as well. So I'll keep you posted on that. Since we are talking about funding, we've already started our budget process for fiscal year 21-22. We started that early in anticipation of things. We are required to have a flat budget. So there is no increase to our current budget at all. We're able to move things around, and we're still working on that. The final budget won't be done until I think February or March, and it'll go before City Council in April. So again, we'll keep you posted on that. The advantage of being under the Community Development Department, which is the reorganization of departments that happened, is that we're able to work together and work closely with our department colleagues and hopefully leverage some funds. And that's a great segue in how we leverage our funding is that the CARES Act funding, we were able to work with economic development and land use actually to create a brand new series of public service announcements, working again with Carlos Medina and with Kayla Waldstein. And they're going to create a series of 3 to 4 videos. And the first one will go out in before the holidays. Ermine, if you want to give us a quick update, Ermine is our lead working and managing that creative process with them.
Of course. So we are doing a series of videos. There will be 4 of them. We're currently filming. We'll be filming on site at La Familia on Wednesday. And we're also doing a COVID photo series with Carlos Medina, who is the talent for both the video and the photos. And he'll be dressing in his various characters and kind of being a tester we're trying to ease the fears of being tested and try to encourage people to get testing. And so we're working on that. The video series will start presenting those on our social media, as well as through various media outlets, both on radio and on Telemundo for TV, and hoping to work with the CW to also display that video series. And they'll also be in the hotel rooms for the tourists so that when you show up to your hotel room, you turn on the TV and our video will be playing to kind of encourage not only tourists, but even just local visitors about COVID safe practices. So we'll be starting that before the holidays, and we'll be sending that out to you once those are ready.
And this was all started because Century Bank gave us some funding. We matched it and were able to produce Yo Prometo on a shoestring budget. And based on that, that demonstrated the impact and the reach that had, which then got us the CARES Act funding under economic developments and land use and planning under the whole Yo Prometo Altogether Santa Fe campaign. So we've been working, and Ermine's been representing the Arts and Culture Department on the larger campaign altogether to make sure that it's cohesive and having the impact, especially across the city. So
thank you, Pauline. I forgot to add that we did receive $60,000 from CARES funding to to make the Yo Prometo series the second series.
Oops, hold on. I wanted to share my screen. I want to move to the, can you make me host? I want to be able to share, do a screen share.
Joe, are you on at the moment? For some reason, maybe Rod, can you see if you're able to make Paulina host? It does not give me the option for some reason.
Sorry for the delay on that. I should have
I'll
confirmed.
try. Let me see what I can find.
So I can go into the Culture Connects CARES initiatives. Again, we received $75,000. We were able to leverage that to fund about 50 artists to do mini grants, and those are coming in. They're due this week. Again, all funding has to be paid out by December 30th. So our artists have been working diligently at that. I'd like to thank our arts commissioners for serving on that jury and selection. I know it was very difficult. We came up with some really great ones. And if I do a screen share, when I get that, I can show you examples of some. In addition, we were doing professional development as far as that workforce development under economic development and really providing some additional resources and tools for artists during this time of switching gears and pivoting. I love that new word, right? Pivoting to the digital realm. So we had a series of workshops done on online marketing, and we worked with Rubina from Firefly Strategies, amazing. And also with Belle Segato, who did a 2-part series on using your phone, to shoot videos as well as to do live streaming, which was great. And she was in collaboration with Currents. And that will also include like a listing of potential applications and equipment, low cost to high cost of what individuals and organizations can use. The other workshops that we're doing, which was amazing, was the visual recording for artists. And so the latest trend now is, and it's a fabulous one, is instead of having someone just take notes by hand, you actually have an artist who can visually illustrate what is being said. It is way more engaging. And the big evil plan is, now that we have folks who've gone through this training, when Chart comes around, I'd love to be able to hire those artists to transcribe or to take some of those meetings with what's happening with Chart or with the community engagement, so that they can document that and it's a visual representation. I think would be really a great thing. The other thing that is being developed, and thank you to David Scheinbaum for helping us as well, is a photo lab. So we're working with Robert, I think it's Mejia, who is making some 2 videos for us on how to use the camera equipment and photo lighting, studio lighting. And then next year, January on, we're looking at actually having people safely, when we can, on site in the gallery to book time to use the equipment in order to take really excellent documentation of their artwork, because we know that it's one of the things that is lacking. Hey, Ron, are you able to give me permission?
Pauline, I was able to share that with you. So we all now will have access to share our screens.
Okay.
That's the only way I can do it. So, but you have access now.
Okay, so guys, can you all see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you see the images of you all on my side screen? Or do you just see the green image? I never am sure.
I can see all images.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is just a sampling some of what the artists are doing. So we have murals, we have movie posters that Matthew Chase Daniels did. Jessica Ortiz has a mural that what is it? I can't even read don't share your air, wear a mask. So again, it's a play on words to make it fun and engagement instead of, wear your mask, but other ways to encourage people to practice COVID safe practices. Part of the accessibility and inclusion is that we asked artists at Epping to do a bumper sticker for us in ASL. And again, if you see it says Todo Junto Santa Fe, Altogether Santa Fe, that is where we're driving people to go to, where they can find resources, multiple resources, from housing assistance to food to general information about where to go for medical treatment or testing. So that's really great. Castillo de Flores selected some of the public artworks around town and did one-day pop-up floral installations around COVID safe practices. So this is one of them. Then we also have this fun one by Yvette Serrano who's making the spoke cards. So again, then those go in the spokes of the wheels of the bicycle, and that is reaching a different community and audience. And again, you know, you're outside, you're cycling, however, you should still be wearing a mask, and this is one way to encourage that. And then Corey McGillicuddy's is a photography portraits, and if you see, there's a yellow ribbon, and that's kind of that through line, that connectivity, that artists that we know bring about that inspiration and that hope, and it's all through that through line of art and creativity. And so this is some of the examples of what the Culture Connects Cares dollars are being spent. And when we receive funding as a city for additional CARES Act money, the Arts and Culture Department, we will put in another request for funding so we can continue artist engaged outreach and education. I think it's a really great example. So I think that's my report for now.
Wow, very impressive. That's very cool. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions about either chart or the CARES initiatives or any of that? Please speak up.
I just really quickly want to say I get to look at that poster that's behind Pauline every day because I'm right next door and it makes me smile. So thank you guys.
Yeah, that's a Matthew Chase Daniel. Yeah, it's super cool. Any questions on chart or CARES?
I should also mention that both our poet laureates have written 2 poems each. So that is Elizabeth Jacobson and Artemisia Romero y Carver. They've written 4 poems, 2 poems each. And then Heidi Brankow is an artist graphic designer, and she will be making those into interior bus posters for us. So that will be going about town too. So again, we're trying to hit every mode of transportation, every spot, every medium, every way in which to communicate. So we will keep doing that and we will build out a website once we get everything, or a web page, and encourage everyone to share that because the artists are doing some really amazing things.
Great. Anyone else? All right. And thank you, Pauline, and the whole staff for keeping us constantly engaged with everything going on with chart. We appreciate your keeping us connected with that. And I know quite a few people here have recommended people for a potential committee, so that's great as well. So with that, let's go on to one of our major discussion items, which is the commission terms. Pauline, I don't know how much everyone knows, if you want to outline where we are with terms so we can understand that.
Sure, thank you. So and I know this gets really confusing, so we have clarification now from Deputy City Clerk's office. So a term is defined as October, so let's use 2020 to October 2022, and that is a term. Some commissioners come in midterm. So like Tamara came in as a replacement for former Commissioner Kathleen. So that it is not, your term of 2 years doesn't start when you come in, but it's fulfilling that term between October to October. So we had to clarify that. So terms that have expired, Bernadette has actually done well and served 3 terms with us, and she's in the middle of her 3rd term. So we're going back out, and we've actually, Bernadette, Commissioner Ortiz-Pena will be stepping down. So that is a vacancy. And then our chair, Alex Hanna's term also expired in October. But again, we're doing this transition for February. So this is what's happening. For reappointments, we have 3 commissioners up for reappointment. That's David Scheibenbaum, Tamara, and Andrea Hanley. That's Tamara Bates. So Commissioner Scheinbaum has decided not to renew his appointment for other priorities, but he's not getting off the hook for any collaboration in the future, and he's already offered that up. So thank you. So we'll put forth Alex, or Chair Hannah has also recommended that both Tamara and Andrea be recommended for a reappointment. So we'll put that forward to the city manager and the mayor. And what we're hoping to do is for those that are vacant, so we'll have 3 vacancies. We will put out a call for interest for those who want to serve as arts commissioners. We're going to ask each of you to help us do recruiting. The goal is to get that out soon, and we'll get you the information and a link to SurveyMonkey, I believe is what we're going to use, and make it as easy as possible in English and in Spanish. Also available by a written form for those who have spotty internet and or lack of internet, I should say, and have those due in January, have a list of recommendations that the arts commissioners can then look at, and then put forth a recommendation for commissioners that will go to the city manager and the mayor, and then eventually to governing body. And I hope to do this all before a February special meeting. We've requested a special meeting just for that purpose, to have a really nice transition period of the outgoing and the incoming commissioners. So that's the pathway on that.
Are there any questions on the specific nature of the terms and where you all are in your, I think it's Adelma and Exilda are halfway, and Alma as well. All 3 of you are 1 year into a term. I think Alma's halfway through her first term. Adelma and Exilda are halfway through their second terms. Is that correct? So are there any questions about how those logistics work? And Jorge as well. Sorry, Jorge, I believe, is also halfway through a first term based on filling, he was a brand new term. So sorry, Jorge, you as well. Are there any questions about how that, and I am at the end of my second term, so I'm done. Are there any questions about how that structure works? I think it's meant to be set up so that we have some overlap, which is good because I'm obviously thankful that some of you are staying on. Any questions on that?
So there is, I have a question. So there are 2 positions open?
There'll be 3 because it'll be me
3? Oh,
coming
yeah.
off. David is gonna just do 1 term, and then Bernadette emeritus term is, we're letting her off the hook. So there's 3 of us coming off.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna miss you. Needless to say.
Thank you. Well, let me just say, first of all, thank you to David for serving this term. It's not been an easy term to serve, and I know there's been so much going on and it's not been easy, but I want to thank David in particular for helping us through the transition. He and I have had many conversations just one-on-one about things, and he's kept us focused on Midtown campus issues. He's kept us focused on collections issues. He's helped with that process. He's done a lot of things, and I just want to first of all thank David for that.
Thank you.
And then of course Bernadette has been the glue all the way through for all of us, has been here, and I have to say I was especially thankful when we served together when we were interviewing Alma and Tamara the last go round for new commissioners. She was so thoughtful about all of that, and just brings such a great energy to this group, and was so welcoming when I started. And so thank you for serving for so long and so admirably.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
But we're not letting you all off the hook yet. We want you on for January and February. February for sure, because that's going to be our ta-da moment. And then hopefully we'll have a number of great new commissioners. Are there any questions about the process of us getting new commissioners on board?
I have a quick question. I know in years past, we've all put forward names, and I just wonder, does that list exist? I love that you're also asking for new people to come forward, but do we have that list, Pauline, of those who've been recommended in past years? I know it was a very diverse and I thought a strong list, and I just want to make sure that still exists.
Definitely, I know we have it from last cycle. I'll have to go back in the files to see, and I can definitely share that out with you. And then if you, I'd probably ask you to update any contact information if it's, or confirm that contact information, because I will have to, because things have so much changed, I would encourage them to write a new letter of interest or ask, respond to the questions that we'll be asking.
Pauline, if I could jump in on that just real quick. I know we're going to work on SurveyMonkey, but we will also need a letter of interest as well. And it doesn't have to be long, just basically saying that you want to serve on the commission.
But I think the SurveyMonkey can actually serve as a letter of interest, the way that it's written. We'll discuss that.
Yep. As long as we make it clear that way, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I do want to emphasize what Adelma said, because I know that the sort of working list, which is now maybe 2 years in of working list, is still got some great people. Now, some of those people may not care anymore, but or may have moved or whatever. But I can think of 3 or 4 people off the top of my head that are on that list that would be great commissioners. So we definitely want to, I don't know if we all need to see it, or if you just want to make sure that those people are contacted to fill out the SurveyMonkey, whatever the process is. I think it's important that we build on that list, because I think there's some good people on there.
So I have a question, Pauline. Who should they address the letter to? You, the letter of interest?
So we'll send out some information, and it will be a link to an online letter of interest with some questions for them. So it'll be a guided letter of interest.
We could forward that. We could forward that to people we would recommend.
Right.
Great.
Should we copy?
Also maybe, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, should I copy you, Pauline, on the people that I'm sending it to?
Oh, if you want to, that would be great. Then we have a list of their names.
There were 2 people who were interested, last year. I don't know at this point, with everything that's going on, if they're still interested. But I can also reach out to them and see how they think, how they feel.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Commissioner Varnell. When you do forward that out, that way we can internally keep a running list of folks. So either refer them to us and we'll send it out, or if you send it out, please let us know who you shared that with.
Right.
That way we have a comprehensive list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Adelma, did you have another question?
I just wanted to add that I know in our program guidelines, we are hoping to attract diversity of different art forms and areas of sectors of the arts in Santa Fe. So Pauline, just maybe for in-house, for kind of long range planning, to have a sense of the 3 people who are going off, while we obviously can never replace them, there are certain skill sets and sectors of the community that they represent. So it may be helpful to think about that too. I mean, for example, Bernadette, with all of her arts education expertise, we're going to miss that. David, with his Midtown brilliance and photography skills, just to know where you might have gaps when you're trying to create the larger commission that's representative of fine and performing arts, music, community-based arts, etc.
Yeah, thank you on that, because the ordinance actually spells it out, that we have to have. Obviously, we're always looking for diversity in a general sense, but I think the ordinance spells it out quite specifically, that we have to have diversity of sort of artistic mediums and interests, as well as philanthropic and marketing, I believe, as well. So yeah, we want to make sure we get that range. Thank you, Adelma. Anyone else questions on process? I mean, I think especially Alma, and then let's be sure if someone can follow up with Tamara, since they're new, we might not have their names because we have a bunch of other names from all of us, but especially Alma and Tamara, if you all can follow up with Tamara in particular to make sure she knows to recommend people. And Alma, you're connected to a whole other scene of people and maybe some younger people. So for sure, think of some good people that you might want to serve with. I don't know that we need to get into this now, but is there going to be a different, I'm assuming there's a different process with the mayor in terms of who will be chair.
Because this is a city advisory committee, the mayor appoints the chair. This body can put forth a recommendation, and it's really, and the mayor will either confirm or appoint someone else. So and then the chair and the Arts Commission can then appoint a vice chair, but we already have a vice chair, so we're good.
Yeah, and I will say thank you, Adelma, who will potentially be there in case if we have some transition time in terms of the chair. Adelma will be acting chair if there's a transition, if we have a gap, right? Great. Good. Yeah. So think about that as well. If you all have people that you think would be great commissioners and might actually want to run the whole thing to replace me, then give that some thought as well. Anything else on that? Thank you to the staff for trying to keep that moving along, because it would be nice, obviously, to have that overlap if we can. Okay, so cultural investment funding. These are our grants that got shelved, and now we have some money coming back. So let's hear about. That's our favorite thing to do here, right? Is give out money. So let's talk about how we have that now again. Pauline.
So our previous category, when the city was flush with money and prosperous before the pandemic, we had 6 grant categories giving out about almost over $900,000. The pandemic hit, our budget was cut by 53%, and we are allocating out $320,000 for the cultural investment funding program. We did a reimagining of the grant program. We have 2 categories. Each category we will award up to 8 organizations, and it's a fixed amount. So the first category is called Digital Collaboration Impact, and it's an expansion of the collaborative arts marketing. Early on in March, when the pandemic started, I started to convene stakeholder meetings. And through these, we were meeting every 2 weeks. We're now at every 3 weeks. And it was really nice to see organizations come together and talk. And there's been a lot of collaboration. So we know that's a really great way in which to spread the dollars around, basically, right? So those will be grants of $30,000. At least 2 arts and culture nonprofits have to be in the lead. They could have a 3rd or 4th partner who does not have to be an arts and culture nonprofit. The idea is to create digital content that could be marketed about Santa Fe, because again, everything is lodgers tax funded, and we have to look at marketing and promotion. This is a really great way for us to support the creation of programming because it's digital. This is a really nice thing, because the other category, traditional marketing impact, is what it says. It's traditional. It's your basic paying for advertisement, doing your print brochures and postcards or whatever. And that stipulation is that 51% of that has to be spent directly on marketing and promotion, and which does include a consultant if they need it. So the difference, and that's only, those are awards of $10,000. The main difference between DCI and TMI is that the whole budget for DCI can be used to create content. So that's if you need equipment, if you need training, if you need an editor, a writer, a photographer, any of that, obviously artistic talent, because you're creating these things or taking things that you've already done and meshing them, and then to promote cultural tourism in Santa Fe. And we're encouraging that to happen in unusual places as well, and unusual pairings. We're really asking organizations to go outside of their usual partners and try something different. This is the time to do something different. And we've seen so much pivoting already that it's going to be really exciting. The applications are due on the 22nd, and then we will audit those to make sure all the materials are in, and then we will probably start reviewing with the selection panels in early January. And my goal is to get people under contract by February. So it's going to be a really rushed timeline, but doable. And that will get people through the end of June. We will start the next round for next fiscal year. The applications will be developed and have to go out sometime in early spring. So, and we're doing all this without a grants person. So we're just juggling. And so it's all great. And we're super excited to finally have gotten this out.
Quick question of clarification. Did you see that the TMI are 15,000 or 50?
10,000.
10,000. I got that all wrong. Okay. And then can you tell me, was there a third group or it's just these two? I thought
That's the two.
just the two. Okay. Thank you.
And on the traditional marketing, there's no, I know it's traditional marketing, but it used to be that there was a regional, like it was local, regional, national, international. Is that all gone? It's just any kind of marketing?
It has to be at least regional. It can't be local,
right? Because
we need to attract tourism here, tourism dollars here. So it is regional, being at least northern New Mexico. The nice thing, and hopefully we'll do a survey to our arts organizations, is that because they've gone to that virtual platform, they are now getting hits and views globally. So it's actually expanded their audience. So this would be a really great, a great way to further support that.
Other questions for Pauline on the grants program? I'm so thankful that we are able to do something in the middle of all this with it. So any other questions?
A big part of our convenings that we were doing that Pauline put together starting when the pandemic started was we were finding that all these organizations were having to think on their feet and pivot and create digital content and think outside the box, and performing arts groups were, completely befuddled by how do we do what we do, but in a digital way. And so this was a way for us to fund experimentation and also fund experimentation, but also the ability for groups to learn from each other and also do some capacity building. So we're hoping that the larger organizations with the staff that are dedicated to such things will be able to help the smaller organizations learn, adapt, and kind of adopt some of those functions in the way that they work, so that all these organizations will be better and more easily able to pivot, so that we're more digitally prepared in the future.
I think it's great. Brilliant.
Just really quickly, what kind of feedback are you getting, if any, from, you have quite a community of grantees in this city, many of whom have received support from the city for multiple years. So are you getting feedback or any communication from past grantees?
Yeah, it's disappointing, the award amounts. And it will probably, because even next year we'll have a flat budget, it will probably take us 3 to 5 years to even rebuild that. So by reducing the number of categories to 2 seems feasible. Having an option of traditional versus something a little more innovative was a little something for everybody. And the city adopted the state procurement codes. And so our RFP now has to follow that. And it's very strict, and that's new to folks, which is really nice about this community of arts organizations and art leaders, is that, for instance, Matthew Chase Daniel has created a Google Classroom for applicants. If they have problems or questions about GoSmart, the online application, it'll be a peer-to-peer troubleshooting sessions. And it's monitored fully by them, because at a certain point, as the Arts and Culture Department, I can't address any more questions. Everything had to be submitted in writing and responded in writing and posted publicly. For next cycle, I'm looking at how New Mexico Arts does their procurement, which is not going through the city procurement process, which will allow us more flexibility. And so there are exemptions in the procurement code that I'm looking into, but I could not take on that battle in the midst of the pandemic trying to get this out. So I'm hoping in spring, when we do the next round, it will be definitely much more user-friendly. Because that's a
potential applicants, right?
Accessible, and this process is limiting. I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, just that it does look like you're going to have quite a few applicants for both. Good. And also, I was thankful that there will be an arts commissioner on each of the 2 panels. I think I'm allowed to say that, right? Because I know that's part of the rules about who's on the panels. But luckily that we'll have some representation on those. What is the timing on when we think as a commit, because we still have to vote on do a final approval of the funding, correct? As a commission to recommend it to City Council?
Usually we do those when it's contracts over 50,000, and in the emergency proclamation that's changed things. So these are the highest award contracts are 30,000. So what I think will happen, because we'll have a special meeting in January, it might be here's how they were ranked, and this is who's being under contract. So depending on the timing and when we can get the contracts done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the grants? Thank you for your hard work on reimagining all this in the middle of all this. I can't imagine. And your whole staff, I mean, working on this has been great. Even if it's a less money, it's just the fact that we're able to do it is so important. Any other questions? All right. We would have a public comment period, looks like on our agenda, but I do not see anyone there. So I think we can.
You are correct. There are no public attendees, so we can move past the opening for public comment.
Okay, great. So we have 2 action items. I'm very proud of this next action item, and I'm very, very thankful to Andrea for working so hard over the last year plus on this document. I hope you all had a chance to read it. Not only her, but her Arts and Public Places committee, which includes Jorge. I know David stepped in a couple times to read through some things. I know the staff has read things carefully. So everyone's worked really hard on this. And I think it's something we can really be proud of as a commission, recommending the department to implement this. I guess, are there any just general questions first, and then we can open it up to any potential amendments to the document? Are there any general questions about this document? I think we've talked about it on and off over the last year or so. Okay, is there anything specific in the document that caused anyone pause? This is going to go through still a little bit more of a process, but I want to make sure what we approve is something that we're all very confident about. Was there anything in that document that you all had questions about or wanted to see about finessing in any way?
I have a few comments, but I also want to say I kind of read it quickly. So if what my comment is already in here, Andrea would have to let me know that it's in there. I also want to say how pleased I am that this is happening. And I want to echo what you just said about how hard everybody, on this committee worked. This is an amazing achievement, I think, for the Arts Commission. I remember when I started, the shock that a number of us had that something like this didn't even exist. So this is a big deal. So thank you for that. So I just kind of reread it before the meeting again. So Andrea, just keep me honest on this. But just 3 comments. I just want to make sure our stuff is in there. So on this part about the relocation of works, there's been a number of legal cases throughout the last 30, 40 years about artists who created site-specific works that there's really a question of whether once an artist is engaged to produce a site-specific work, if it can be relocated. And I just want to make sure there's something in that section that first goes back to the artist. Unless the artist has signed a waiver before the work was created, before there's talk about relocating a work, there has to be either a clause that's been signed off or some way to go back to the artist and seek their permission, because the artist does have a right to insist that a work cannot be moved if it was created for a site-specific piece. And I think, if you do art ethics, there's a number of famous cases about where, major works had to be destroyed because the cities were not permitted to move them. So
I think it's important. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, especially because there was discussion a while back when Alex was the president or was the chair of AIPP, where we did talk about the possibility of moving public art to different places just to kind of mix it up a little bit. I think that both in those cases of site-specific work, as well as just letting the artist know that we're moving the piece, should be something that should be in those guidelines as well.
So so that needs to be covered. I just
Pauline, what's your thought on that, Pauline?
Because it's under federal protection, the artist, under VARA, the Visual Arts Rights Act, if we were to relocate or modify, unless it's because of an immediate public safety hazard, then we could remove it immediately. Otherwise, we are required to give the artist at least 90-day notification of modification and or removal. The artist can choose to document, can choose to relocate at his or her own expense within those 90 days, or have their name removed if it's modified to something that they don't agree with. So that we are protected.
You feel that's all covered in this document?
I will double check to make sure that VARA is clearly listed. I know it's in the document someplace, but it might be really nice to reconnect it back with the relocation.
Okay, and I have two more items, if I may. Just to bring them up. In case they.
David, I love that you get in the weeds on this document, because it's, God bless, it's tough to do, but I'm glad you're doing it. So keep going.
Okay, and this isn't to bring up any current events that have gone on in our city, but in the case that we just experienced, where a work of art was removed, and again, I don't know that it was part of the art portfolio or how it was defined, but I'm just wondering if there's something written into the document that would either prevent that or spell out a procedure if something like that was to arise again. And yes, I'm talking about the Cathedral Park thing, but there should be something in here that spells out what the procedure is for an emergency removal, however you want to define it. I just think it would cover us as the city, as the Arts Commission. And then thirdly, I have two more things. I'm sorry.
Do you want to address that particular case? Because I think it's super important.
Okay, so I think something should be addressed for that. In the section about the reproduction of work, it's really toward the end. I didn't see anything in here where it says that the city has acquired the copyright for works of art when they commission works of art. So therefore, either we add something that when works of art are commissioned, they come with a use of copyright, and if not, then you need to put something in that section that says with the permission of the copyright holder, because you're talking about using for publicity, using it for, there's a whole section of all the ways works could be reproduced. But in my opinion, they can't be reproduced at all if the city doesn't have the copyright. And in owning an artwork does not imply you own the copyright. So maybe that wants to be spelled out a little clearer. Again, and it makes sense, the city might want to use a work of art for an ad campaign. But again, the copyright will belong to the artist, not to the city. So something has to be spelled out where that's clear. An artist, at least maybe part of the original contract, when an artist is given a grant, to sign off that says the city is allowed to use this for non-commercial purposes, or however you want to do it. But I didn't see that in here. And then lastly, I don't understand the whole plywood thing with the murals. I don't know of any murals that are done on plywood. And there's something in here that talks about maintaining, caring for the integrity of the structure. I think attaching plywood to a structure is going to do more to damage it than, a mural should be on the wall. And I think there's a lot of problems if we're going to be requiring people to do murals on plywood.
I think we were looking to
historically, I think it's different. I'm sorry.
David, I think we were looking for a way, and that was in the initial document that we submitted to AIPP, and everybody agreed to it. But I think what we were trying to do is we were trying to come up with a way that that provides integrity for the murals, so that they're not putting them on something that doesn't make sense and is going to fall apart, or will, you know what I mean? Like, there was all these different kinds of things that we were looking at. So maybe if that language, Pauline, can be clarified in terms of how that needs to lay itself out. Maybe it doesn't say plywood. It says,
I think substrate is as an option. So either directly painted onto the wall, and if so, because regardless of what is used to do the mural, that wall has to have some integral structure regardless. But there should be options for if you did want to do a substrate. Again, if you do a substrate and somehow you can still adhere it to the wall. It doesn't have to be like a thin backer board, and then, because again, we don't want to puncture the wall. And if we do, then we want to use epoxy or some other thing to seal any openings. But I want to be able to leave it open. I think the intention of AIPP was to provide options. So I think if we use plywood to substrate.
I just don't want to limit. I know when I commissioned Shepard Ferry to do the piece at the college, he sent us directions to prepare the wall. If we asked him to do it on some other surface, I don't think he would have come to Santa. He would not have accepted that commission. He's a muralist. He works on the wall. And, we had to prepare the wall to his specs. In fact, we built the wall to his specs. But, if we're going to, I think some muralists might not want the piece to removable. I don't know. I'm just, when I read it now, I read it very quickly, and I'm not hoping, I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to.
No,
I want this to pass.
No, it's really important. And it's interesting because I'm remembering Keith Haring's mural project that he did on an abandoned building down in downtown Phoenix. And he did that all on plywood. And his directions for that particular, when the building was going to be demolished, is that that the murals were demolished with him, but he did them all on plywood.
All right.
And they were all outside of this abandoned building in downtown Phoenix. It's a pretty important project, but it was really important for him that when that building went down, that those plywood pieces actually went down, that he drew on went down too. It's an interesting idea, but no, I completely understand what you're saying. And also, just in terms of just whatever we're going to use, if a piece, for example, wanted to be conserved, or we want to have something that saves, like this really amazing piece, then we have some options as well. So that's the only reason I think we brought up that plan. But I just reminded me of that Keith Haring project in Phoenix a million years ago.
Yeah.
So that sounds like that can be fairly easily finessed in the language, right? And then the copyright issue, do we feel is that fairly easy to make sure?
Yes, and I would argue that the artist keeps copyright, because this is not a work for hire in my book. And actually, as I create commissioned artworks through the Art in Public Places program, the 2%, I will have them register copyright. But what we put in the contracts is that we can use the images for non-commercial purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
if that language is in there, I think that's important.
Line of the artwork, but there cannot be without contacting the Arts and Culture Department. If an artist wants to replicate it, they have to get permission from us first. And what we may do, because it is site specific or commissioned through the Arts Commission, we may ask for a commission off of that if they decide to make another, whatever it is. So it's in the contract language, but I think Commissioner Scheinbaum, you're right. We should include some sort of reference in the copyright section, and I'll go back and look at that. And I'll work with Andrea Salazar too, our Assistant City Attorney, on the languaging of that, because she'll be the one reviewing and finalizing the document.
Great. And then on David's first point, just to reiterate, you said, Pauline, that there is language around notification about moving a piece. So we'll make sure that's clear as well. So I think the only other point that David brings up that I think is an important one, and I'm not quite sure how it impacts the document, is this issue of an emergency removal. I mean, frankly, I've been asked, well, where the heck is that Don Diego de Vargas sculpture? You know, where did it go? And what happened? And so I don't know how that, I think it's an important part of why we're doing this, right? To have these guidelines. Do we need to add something that's an emergency measure? And then is there a certain time frame that then follows up with the Arts Commission or whoever to make sure it's been stored properly, et cetera? Or how does that work?
So for the emergency removal, and this one, the Don Diego sculpture was removed under the emergency proclamation and public health order. So that was removed fairly quickly and put in storage. Again, the Arts and Culture Department doesn't have storage, but the city has storage facilities throughout. So it is secure there. So I think what we can do is, you know, put in language about coordination with the Arts and Culture Department. And with probably, I think it's Public Works or whoever the department would be responsible for helping to remove something if it were a public safety hazard.
Great.
And then we would have to again look at what happens? Is it removed because there was damage to the building and then we can reinstall it someplace, and that then includes then talking with the artist and going back? Or is the artwork itself damaged and has to be removed and is either conservatable or not? So that would again include contact with the artist.
And we still have the language in there about condition reporting when those things are taken off for those specific reasons. So when that piece, you know, the Don Vargas piece was moved, did someone go in and do a condition report on it to make sure that, you know, we can say with, you know, we can say that it went in there looking great. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing, there was no damage to it except for wear and tear for it being outside. I mean, so when somebody comes in to pull it back out and there's a huge, I mean, maybe something has happened to it, we can determine that that happened while it was in storage versus when it was taken down. So I think that there needs to be some language in there that says that when things are taken off in this kind of, in this way, that we're going to condition report the piece so that we know that when it went in, it was good. And if anything happened to it while it was in storage, you know, just this main Santa Fe storage, somebody bumps into it, somebody knocks it over with a lamp or, you know, whatever they're storing it with, that this is, you know, we know.
Great. I mean, Rod, I think you have some experience with this kind of thing from works in and out of the gallery, right?
Typically, the works that are in the gallery are covered by the city's insurance, the rider that's on the city's policy for the gallery. So anytime the artist puts a work in, their contract provides for it to be covered by the gallery for, you know, by our insurance policy. And there have been cases in which pieces have been broken and the artist received 60% of the listed price as a result.
Right. Okay, great. Any other questions or comments on the document? Adelma?
I just had one comment on page 5, at the bottom of page 5, where we're talking about program funding sources. In section B, other funds, public sector or private sector. So if we're looking at private foundations, organizations or individuals, I know that we've discussed that it's really helpful if we have a 501c3 partner that can receive those funds and people can receive a tax deduction. So I realize that may change with different projects, but it may be helpful to make some note of a nonprofit partner or partners that would be involved in the raising of private sector funds.
And how does that get placed with thank you, Adelma, for saying that, because it also brings up, these conversations that we had with, for example, the past executive director of the Arizona Commission on the Arts, who came to visit with us and talk with us of the relationship between nonprofit and money kind of being moved from here and there. What the Arizona Commission on the Arts did for certain projects is they would partner with the Arizona Community Foundation. And I think that we had talked about a long time ago, before Pauline, you came on, that having these kind of formal partnerships with people like, for example, the Santa Fe Community Foundation would be important. I'm not sure how that all lays itself out in this document, but I'd like to, I mean, me along with Adelma probably, I'd like to know.
Pauline, I know you've worked with some different nonprofit partners. I don't know much not much needs
Currently, all of
document, but
all of our CARES Act, the mini grants, and also the Artist Relief Fund, all was funded with in affiliation with the Santa Fe Art Institute. They became our fiscal sponsor for both of those projects. So, and we have been in discussion with the New Mexico Community Foundation, and we have a network over at the Santa Fe Community Foundation. So any of those are possibilities in the future, but we already have an existing model with the Art Institute in which the way that worked for those two very current projects, actually.
great.
And if
Well,
there's,
Oh,
I mean, I don't want to get us stuck in the weeds, but if there's time to consider it, it may just be listing nonprofit partners where appropriate for the raising of private sector funds.
Specific to Santa Fe too.
Okay.
So I'll add that in under on page 5, 5 administration, 6 program funding sources, B. So I'll
Right.
have that language in.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for that partnership with the Art Institute. They've really come through for us. So that's great that that's working. But yeah, different projects may require different types of partners. Great. Anything else? David, I think Adelma, go ahead.
Just one more quick one. When we were talking about loans from the city to art or educational institutions, Rod, maybe you can speak more to this. And Pauline, I thought they had to be nonprofit organizations. Is that true or not?
That's not true. Currently, we're working on moving the Beaumont Newhall Library over to the state. It's going to the collection over there at the New Mexico Museum of Art. It's going to their collection, and that's an agreement, a long-term loan, and it can be educational or other governmental or nonprofit.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I think when we are also thinking about these pieces, we're looking at pieces like that enormous wall hanging by Roxanne Swinsel, for example. So, there are specific things that I think that, at some point, maybe there's going to be a huge retrospective of Roxanne Swinsel and they want to look at that piece. How are we going to loan that? So it's just something to consider.
Great. David, did you have one more follow-up?
No, I think I've.
Well, you've proven your worth and why everyone's going to miss you for that boy for only serving one term. But thank you for all that.
If that's the case, would you give me the honor of recommending that this be approved?
Yes, absolutely. And but I think you just have to say with these, Pauline, you've been jotting notes, 4 or 5 minor amendments, right?
So
go ahead,
I would move that this document be approved with a few minor additions or adjustments we've just mentioned.
And I'll second.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad to have Andrea second. Great. Anything else? Any other questions on this or comments?
I'm just so pleased it's happening.
Yay!
I think
Alma's raising her hand.
Oh, Alma, do you have a question?
Will we get a copy of the draft with the amendments?
Pauline, can we get a copy before it goes to Andrea Salazar?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, just good to have that. So we have it. And then I assume, hopefully there won't be many changes, but then at that point, it will just go, what's the process then, Pauline, after it goes to Andrea Salazar?
It will then, we'll legally review it, and I believe we'll work with Jesse Gillen to see about the legislative role. It probably will go to the city manager and mayor, and I believe city council, but I'm not exactly clear on that. But that's the pathway I'm assuming it. I think it's good for it to be shared with, especially as the chart committee or chart formation community center engagement. I know the processes and procedures is something that they will be really interested in knowing about.
Great. So anything else? All right, Erminia, if you will call the roll for David's motion that Andrea seconded, please.
Alex Hanna,
Yes.
Alma Castro,
Yes.
Andrea Hanley.
We got to hear you.
Yes. Is that a yes?
Oh, yes, yes.
I need a yes. Adele Mahanasco,
Yes.
Bernadette Ortiz Pena,
Yes.
David Scheinbaum,
Yes.
Exilda Trujillo de Martinez,
Yes.
Jorge Bernal,
Yes.
Tamara,
Yay.
oh, I'm sorry, Tamara is excused.
All right.
That motion carries.
Bravo, everyone, for your hard work on this. Okay, we have one little mini last bit of business, which is our schedule. And it looks like we're going to have some regular meetings. But Pauline, do you want to explain your thoughts on this schedule and how we're going to go about this?
Actually, I'm going to have Erminia walk us through that.
Okay, Armenia.
So I hope everyone had a chance to look at the proposed dates. I will pull it up on our screen to share with everyone, just to go over once again. We are proposing quarterly meetings beginning in January of 2021. Due to the COVID pandemic, we currently meetings of committees that are not essential are being held. Hopefully that will change soon, but for now we are proposing the following 4 dates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 dates, all on Mondays still, but they will be quarterly meetings.
And obviously we can have an emergency meeting, and we are planning we already have an emergency meeting for February on the books, correct?
Correct. So these are proposed dates that will go on the schedule, but for any reason, we can always propose or request a special meeting.
And one clarification, just so people, the other commissioners understand, we have a little more flexibility with this regular schedule than we might with an emergency meeting, correct?
Correct. Yes. Emergency meetings need to be for a specific reason, and they cannot discuss regular business. It will be for that
Even
special.
though we kind of
item.
pushed the boundaries today.
Well, a little bit, but this was a scheduled meeting already, so it's a little bit of
Okay, all right, well, anyway.
but yes, so in special meetings, no regular items can be discussed. It has to be pertaining to that special request.
And one more question, and then we can open up to other questions from me, which is, what is the mechanism by which we determine, is this like a mayoral proclamation that COVID is done and we can meet in person and no longer are under this kind of thing, and we go back to a regular monthly schedule, or how does that work?
It would actually come from the city manager. So Jarrell Panhill would have to make the recommendation or the proposal that meetings may happen in a regular fashion once again. So that would come from the city manager once that's allowed.
Great.
Or it also follows the governor's guidelines. So as long as the governor also allows meetings again in person, or a certain amount of number of people that can be in a room, that would allow us to meet.
Great, got it.
So those kinds of items. Does anyone have any questions?
What are the schedule hours? Is it like today, 3 to 5, or is it shorter time?
Correct. Today was a special meeting request outside of, because we're not currently meeting, but it would be once again starting at 5 p.m.
Great.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Can I have a motion to approve this schedule?
I so move.
Great, thanks, Jorge. Can I have a second?
Second,
I think I heard Alma first. So Alma second, thank you. Any other comments, questions, worries, concerns? All right, Armenia,
Okay, Alex Hanna,
yes.
Alma Castro,
Yes.
Andrea Hanley,
Yes.
Adelma Hinasco,
Yes.
Bernadette Ortiz Pena,
Yes.
David Scheinbaum,
Yes.
Exilda Trujillo de Martinez,
yes.
Jorge Bernal,
Yes.
and that motion carries.
Great, and I just want to emphasize that this full commission, as it stands right now, is invited to that January meeting and our February transition emergency meeting. Do we have a date? We don't have a date for the February. We're going to leave that loosey-goosey for now. Okay, great. So everyone be sure to plan on reconvening January 11th at that 5 p.m. slot for a regular meeting.
And Alex, thank you for all you've done. Your leadership and your help has to be said because you've been very patient. Yeah, at least I got a laugh out of you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jorge. I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Thank you. All right. Is there any other business? Are we at the end? We are at the end. Any other business to discuss? All right. Thank you all for being here. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Great
You're
meeting.
welcome. You
One-
still
one
got me
thing
for 2 more meetings, so can't get rid of me yet.
One thing, if I can jump in real quick, Alex.
Yeah.
Our item number 8, it says next meeting, no meeting scheduled. Just a reminder, yes, we will be meeting in January. I'm sorry we had to put that, but because we had not approved the proposed calendar yet, that's why that says that. So I'm sorry if that's confusing.
Right.
Yeah, we figured it was just some bureaucratic sleight of hand. I wasn't too worried about it. All right, thank you all. Have a
Good night.
beautiful evening. Anything else? Any last comments?
Meeting
All
adjourned.
right, I
Well,
adjourn the
wait,
meeting.
we should
Bye,
wish each
everyone.
other
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
happy holidays.
Holidays.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
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 I'm gonna stay on real quick. I don't know if we have to do something for Joe. So I'm gonna stay on for just a second. Oh. You're on mute.
So we're still recording. I'm going to sign off and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you.